welcome to the We Are at War, the 8th annual reported waste and recycling facility report and Q&A. If you've been on my reports or if you've been on my webinars for the last few years, I am going to make this a little bit different, right? We started Fire Rover in 2015. First 5 years, we really proved that the system worked to ourselves and to our customers. The second 5 years, we've been scaling the business. I mean, we're on 3 continents, 750 locations. And last week we received FM certification. So along with our other certifications that we do have, it is a different time. So I kind of call this the next 5 years, right? You build an overnight success over years. We're doing a great job, but honestly, with FM, really, we're at the start of the race, not at the end. All the different things, it's trying to get credibility, it's trying to get insurance, it's trying to educate everybody on our type of solution that we have, which is the only one in the world that does what it does. One of the key things that we're doing in waste and recycling to try to help the issue and how it fits in, as with regard to the types of fires that we have had. You can follow my fire safety report. I have 12,000 followers on that newsletter. So if you're on LinkedIn, please feel free. Here's the rules of today. And again, I don't mean to make this hard. The actual rules are there's no rules. But as you can see, my friend Kurt Sander, who is with the National Waste and Recycling Association, he is the enforcer, and not to be confused with our Enforcer 60 that we sell. So as I walk through this is the cliff notes. Like, I'm open to all opinions, feedback, further analysis. I do not say that this is 100% correct. If there are things that you see that aren't correct, please let me know. If there are things that you disagree with, I'm more than happy to learn, and more than happy to understand. This is an evolution of truly understanding how we can protect ourselves in a lot of different markets, industrial and outdoor, which happen to include waste recycling and scrap metal and electronic recycling and all the other pieces. 2, please type all questions into the chat. I'll try to answer them as I go. After 30 minutes, which I'm hoping that this will take about 30 minutes for us to get through the presentation, hopefully less. I'll allow you guys to ask your own questions. So Dave Biederman, when you're ready, you can raise your hand. Just please be respectful of others' time. We don't need a 15-minute question about your background. Just say your name, who you're with, and what your question is. This is not a sales pitch, right? So I am not trying to get you to buy Fire Rover. That is the last thing I'm trying to do. Now, my goal is to educate you on our solution. If you believe in it, we can talk offline. If you don't believe in it, at least you know what you don't believe in, because my biggest issue and my biggest pet peeve is that people say they don't like our system, but they don't understand it. So as long as you're educated and understand why you don't like it, I will literally shake your hand, walk away, and be happy. If you don't understand the solution, then obviously that's something that I need to fix. Everyone, please say hello to Kurt, who was very nice to actually take on this role. He's graciously offered to be the enforcer of the rules, so he is going to be like the enforcer again. And again, he has questions and other things, so I didn't really need to do a full introduction, but he's here as my support. Also, I'm going to move through the presentation on, this so that I can actually see the questions. So if anyone has an issue with that, just, there's really nothing I can do. This is kind of how I do it. And I'll be moving through the presentation as people ask questions. And finally, my opinions are my own. So as much as Will Schmidt, he's CEO of our company, I mean, these are my opinions. He might have different ones than me. I'm happy to share those. So, don't take this and say, hey, Fire Rover said this. Actually, Ryan Fogelman, who works at Fire Rover or is, one of the Fire Rover partners, said this. So any questions before we get started? Perfect. All right, so this is the reported fires. And so basically I provide the reported fires in the waste and recycling in the US and Canada. This is only for US and Canada. This is only publicly reported fires, right? This is reported fires that are in the media. This is not fires that we've put out. This has nothing to do with that. I'll get into those as we go. But really, what we're seeing, and, I thought years ago when I started doing this, that we would have initial lithium-ion battery wave, and I thought that we were going to be able to get a handle on this problem with just the Fire Rover solution. I was wrong. Fires are increasing. Now, whether they're increasing within and without our system, I'll get into those. But we're seeing a lot of trends. So this is the monthly trends that we are seeing. We're seeing a number of things that I will get into. Now, what's causing those fires, right? Traditional and lithium ion batteries. About 50% of the fires are lithium ion battery related. 50% of the fires are traditional fires that are happening from accelerants, fireworks, hot ashes. And again, I actually have a new video of fireworks that I'll be showing you guys, today. And again, I have a million videos, so we can always go through those. But I mean, the reality is that just because lithium ion batteries are causing a compounding of the risks, it doesn't mean that the traditional hazards that have been around for 70 years have disappeared, right? We still have propane tanks, and now we're actually getting a lot of these gas tanks that kids are using for huffing, and those are being dropped in, and they're causing issues. So again, we have a ton of different types of issues. Hot and dry environments are big. Again, just inherent risk in what we do. Sparks and hot work, right? So a lot of times we do see these around hot work fires. Arson, it happens, right? And then staffing, which is always hard to find, but the industry's done a really good job working through that. So again, a lot of this data, there's a ton more in the annual report. So please feel free to send me an email or sign up for one of my pages, and I'd be more than happy to send you a full report. So this is the concerning part of what's happened for us, right? When we first started, right, we started seeing fires. This is when I started going out there and telling everybody, it was like, hey, there's a lithium ion battery wave of fires that is coming, that's going to hit the industry. In 2018, it hit. 1920, it started getting better. And again, there was pandemic in here. But literally for the past 4 years, we've had more fires than we had during our, during the lithium ion battery wave. And again, what is causing these fires? Keeping in mind that Fire Rover is protecting 5 to 7% of the US and Canadian waste and recycling market. So, we should be seeing, we have more known fires, we should be seeing less fires, period. This is what I call the vape effect.
The waste and recycling industry is facing a hidden threat: lithium-ion batteries, particularly from disposable vapes. Fires caused by improper disposal of these devices have surged dramatically, threatening facilities, employees, and communities. Monthly vape users have grown by nearly 6 million in the past 2 years. With 18 million monthly vape users, who consume an average of 66 vapes annually, contributing to over 48 million improperly disposed of vapes every week in the US and Canada, the impact is staggering. These small devices are causing catastrophic fires despite industry efforts to improve safety. The problem? Limited education and lack of accessible drop-off points for safe disposal. We feel most of these users would dispose of these vapes in a safe way if one was provided. It's on us, the industry, to build solutions that give these users an easy and integrated way to properly dispose of their vapes. We must act now. Together we can tackle the vape effect and protect our facilities, workers, and the environment.
Basically, what the vape effect is that, as we see this, what we're seeing is, if you look at Altria's website, and again, I get really deep into this report, but I'm really trying to understand what's changed here, because really the waste and recycling industry has done a really good job from a fire preparedness, from an operational perspective, and from an investment perspective. They've done all the right things. So why are we seeing more publicly reported fires? And it kind of hit me when I went to Staples, and if I know Mark's on here, but from a call to recycle perspective, if you go and you look at a way to drop off some sort of a battery, typically you can go to Staples, Home Depot, and Lowe's, right? I mean, they're a pretty safe place to walk in with one of our larger personal storage or personal electronics or any sort of power tools, that type of thing. But what happened was I went into Staples and I was doing a TikTok to try to teach people how to properly recycle. And I brought in a toothbrush battery, and I gave it to them, and they said they couldn't take it. And I asked, and she said it's because it's a biohazard. It's been in our mouths. Well, then I started thinking, I'm like, what else has been in our mouths that they won't accept? And again, when you start to look at vapes, like everybody knows disposable vapes aren't disposable, right? They're considered disposable because you throw them away because of the juice inside, whether it's nicotine or THC, whatever that is, that's considered actually a hazard material. So, in Europe, they came out and basically, they pretty much will say that they collect about 17% of these. In the United States, we literally have, I mean, almost no drop-off points for this, right? There is no place that accepts biohazards and hazard material from the public perspective. So, when I'm looking at Ultrail's website, and you can see the numbers in the report, we're looking at about 1.2 billion billion vapes that are being thrown away because there's no other option. Right? If they take it to Staples, they're turned away. If they take it to Lowe's, yeah, you can drop it off and they might not do anything, but they're going to, if you ask them, they're going to tell you no. So where else is anyone going to put them? And if you're in the public, you're going to do what you're going to do. So I really believe that 1.2 billion vapes, honestly, is causing like issues that we're not seeing, and potentially could be, the reason why we have been seeing a steady increase in fires for the last 4 years, keeping in mind that our system is protecting the rest of, the other 5-7%. Again, there's videos on it. So this is the reported fires. I typically break this down by waste paper and plastic, because that is, if you're in the UK, that's your household non-hazardous waste. It's basically your curbside and your business side of paper, plastic, and recycling. And again, we're seeing a 22% increase year over year. We're seeing a 17% increase over year, and a 22% increase over our average, which includes those first 5 years. So I do break this out in the report, from a metals, organics, chemicals, C&D, rubber, e-scrap, right? Now, again, we are seeing fires going up and down, but the reality is after 8 years, 9 years, I mean, we have some pretty steady numbers, and we know that we're pretty much in line with what we're looking at. So I would say this stuff becomes what I would call truth, right? It's baseline truth. I do break waste, paper, and plastics. The reason why I break it out separately is because a lot of times when I see a fire on a tip floor, I don't know if it's a paper MRF, or a MRF that just handles, single stream paper, or if it's a MRF that's going to handle, like MSW. And again, this is really, it's been consistent. So it's not like we're seeing an increase in fire in one section, right? I mean, between 54 and 48, 52%, this is waste paper and plastic, right? Your metal recycling is still making up 30, 40, 30, 35, 40. So, I mean, the reality is that these numbers are holding pretty steady and pretty true for the last 9 years. And again, most of the other are as well. So, when you're seeing 1.2 billion in vapes and you're saying, well, yeah, that's only going to, that's only going to affect the waste paper and plastic. But in reality, that's also affecting cars that are being processed, that are being, thrown into a shredder, right? You can't actually clean out a car. I know there are some, metal recyclers who will literally cut the top of cars off and, lift up the car, dump it upside down and shake it to try to get the batteries and money out. There are a lot of things that we have done from a best practice perspective, from an operator perspective. But I mean, the true reality is that we're still seeing these fires, and, these batteries that we have are getting pretty much everywhere. Another trend that we're seeing is a summertime spike. It continues to extend. So, when you see that visually, this is this number. It used to go down, right? It used to come down and then go back up once we hit fourth quarter, right? But with changes to supply chain, with Amazon versus retail, with whatever's happening, we're not given that breath anymore, right? We're really, November, December, January, February, and March. But I mean, right when we hit April, we're back into prime fire season. And it used to last from basically May, June, July, or, June, July, August. It would kind of shift most years. But now we're really seeing it just, consistent from, March, April, May, June, July, August. And this year we saw it all the way to October. So, it's definitely something that's becoming more concerning. Now, this is, why fire rover, right? And the reality is we fight more fires on the front line than anyone else in the world, right? Last year, we put out 268 fires, and I'll get into that next. But really what's happening is that when we have a continuous flow, which is now FM approved, when we have a continuous flow option, we're actually in a better position to fight the fire. So the early detection that people talk about, right? Early detection is one thing that we do, and we do it better than anybody else, but that's not the differentiator. If you go out and you buy an early detection protection system, you're only getting a certain level of protection, right? For us, what ends up happening is that like with continuous flow, we have unlimited water. And so what ends up happening is that when the fire department gets there, they're pulling out their ticks. All they're doing, they can't actually see the fire, right? They don't know the heat that they're shooting at. It's also dark and it's full with smoke, which again, we can still are better set to fight these fires than the fire department. And again, why would I want a fire professional breathing toxic fumes, endangering themselves when they don't have to, right? There's enough times that they have to endanger themselves when they have to, or when, they're dealing with residential or commercial fires. When you're dealing with industrial and outdoor fires, there's no reason that we shouldn't be on the front lines fighting these fires safely from a remote location somewhere in the US, right? At one of our UL certified 5-diamond facilities. So, this was a massive fire. If this would have been anything but our continuous flow system, this building would have burned down. And again, we have a lot of these types of calls that we've been having, especially, with our unlimited systems. So this is our performance. And again, when you start to look at, I've always done publicly reported fires because I wanted to understand what was going on from an industry perspective, from a fire protection industry perspective. But really, when we're fighting these and we're showing and trying to prove that our system is certified and ready and prepared to be on the front lines, I'm sharing this data. I mean, last year we responded to 2,910 actionable hotspots or fires. Of those, we pressurized our system 18% of the time. Of those, we sprayed 268 times. Fire department and fire dispatches, we do have thermal only solutions for landfills and for hot works with our new robot. And that one actually does suppression as well. And we've only had 2 catastrophic losses since we've started it 10 years ago. So catastrophic losses, if you ask Mike Tempane, it's about $400,000 or more is the definition that I'm using based on the National Waste and Recycling Association. They had put out a report really using that as the time. But I mean, the reality is that one of those was a tip floor and one of those was a major hazard. We've never had one at a scrap metal facility, not one time, right? We've had one in a tip floor, and it was because of, there was a lot of accelerant that was actually like poured onto the tip floor 2 hours before. So, again, there's certain times that we can be, our system does very well a lot of times, but yes, I mean, there's no guarantee that the system is going to protect every single situation at every time. And I think 2 times out of 10 years is a pretty good track record from an insurance perspective. And hopefully that really hits home in this as we're talking. So this is really the idea as I put them together. The Fire Rover client saves 2,910, right? And then publicly reported fire incidences. So again, we have more known fire incidences, but we have less catastrophic losses, which is really the problem. So just to get into more data, we have state data this year, which I've added in. What would you like to know? Again, there's certain things where I know that this report's been used by a lot of EPR and a lot of states, and when they're looking for their data. So I do have all that data in there. You can make your own assumptions, and you're more than welcome to talk me through what you see. But the reality is that from a state perspective, it's almost too micro for us to truly understand what's going on. But again, from a benchmark perspective, most states stay relatively consistent. Look at New York, right? Most states are staying relatively consistent over a long period of time. Again, we also do states generated by tons. So, how's your state doing? I mean, everybody loves to rank their state. New Hampshire, you did bad this year. I'm really sorry to hear that, but you had more fires per tonnage than anyone else. But that doesn't mean that you're a bad state. It means that, you just happen to have more fires that year. So again, this is really where the report has a lot of data, a lot of stuff, and a lot of people use it for a lot of different reasons. With that being said, it is something that, I hope is a valuable resource to you guys. To get into consequences, again, business interruption, how long are we down? And really the severity of the fire is most important. And again, this was from Eunomia in 2021 now, but this had 2014 to 2019 data. 80% of fire incidences burn for more than 4 hours, right? Our focus is on those initial 10 minutes between breakdown and suppression. And again, we're doing everything we can to try to get the fires earlier and earlier in the process as possible, knowing that us fighting that fire with human beings is what, is going to be the differentiator between, a successful outcome and potentially, a technological mess. Um, when we talk about, why this is a problem, big issue, right? I mean, you basically have lithium ion batteries are costing in US and Canada alone $1.2 billion. If you look at the traditional hazards, we have about $2.5 billion worth of a cost that are being, really, it's the waste site operators, right? Which really means waste site operators, self-insured, and insurance. And, I can tell you that from an insurance perspective, we are doing more and more self-insurance for our large guys. Obviously, our smaller guys still have insurance, but, especially with the FM certification, I mean, we were able to get prescriptive savings, and now it just makes it a little bit easier. It helps us argue, for for the best possible rates to help take care of, some of the costs and the investments. Fire water, we don't have fire water, right? Fire water is, typically we use about 440 gallons per incident. There has never been a time that we've put millions and millions and millions of gallons of water. But again, that is, the guys who are using fire water as their front lines, or that they're using the fire department as their front lines, you end up with a lot of fire water as a result, and public nuisance and all the other things that we can help protect. Deaths and injuries, this was actually a pretty solid one this year. Typically the injuries are firefighters. And again, this is where, we get into, like, we fight the fires without the firefighters being subjected to all of the hazards that they've been subjected to for 100 years. And so the reality is our goal is to get this number to zero, right? Because why would we ever have an injury if we don't have an event that goes past a certain type of level? And again, fire departments, when they do come in, they come in safely, and they know that they're coming to a safe location that we've already been able to pre-wet and spray and potentially extinguish most of the time. Carriers are acting at a market rate, and again, there's a lot of insurance companies that are leaving. But the reality is that there's a lot of insurance companies that are now staying. And again, I think we've changed this trend. So I've had this in for a long time, but insurance companies are finally listening.
We have not had a significant loss at a location with the Fire Rover system. The insurance market for anyone in the industry is getting tougher and tougher. And the fact of the matter is, they want to see what we're doing to mitigate the risk of property losses from fires. There is a significant savings where we have the tools like Fire Rover deployed.
He basically is, saying that they are using our system to negotiate with their insurance companies to get better prescriptive rates. So, for years, people have said that insurance companies won't help us. That is absolutely the furthest thing from the truth. If your insurance company won't give you a prescriptive discount based on having our solution, then you need a different insurance company, period. You won't be able to convince me any differently. And again, we are finally FM approved. If you've ever listened to me or heard me, all I can ever say is we need FM approval. Well, our team, Mike Bodner and, his crazy cats at Fire Rover got us everything that we needed, right? So thank you, Michael, if you're on it. Thank you, Will, for everything you've done. But we are now FM approved, and I hope there's people from FM approval on this that are listening. So again, keeping in mind a couple more things, and I'm getting 5 more minutes, so I think I'm actually doing a pretty good job, I hope. But really comes down to prevention, professional response, and then the internal response. That's where we come in. My initial 10 minutes between a breakdown, some sort of fire, some sort of hotspot, some sort of early detection, and then us calling the fire professionals to get them on scene. But what we do in those 10 minutes is very key, right? And again, it's what a lot of other organizations who potentially, again, we have a utility patent on what we do. So, there's a lot of folks out there trying to say, hey, we do early detection. That's all you need. That's the key. Or, hey, we do this awesome suppression agent. This is the key, right? The real key is that we fight fires remotely through the internet, and we've been doing that now successfully for 10 years, and we're going to continue to do it and continue to grow it for occupancies in and outside of waste and recycling. So the reality is that the waste and recycling industry in the US and Canada invested in the right type of equipment. Now there's other equipment, there's x-rays that help contamination, there are best processes or best practices for not putting a lot of these things in your trucks, there are landfill best protections, but there's a lot of different things that we can do. We are just a layer, but fortunately we're the layer that works. And really, the goal here is not to not have fires. Again, the operator's goal is to never have a fire. I don't know if that's realistic. And there's a lot of industries out there where there's an inherent risk of fire in what we do, like waste and recycling. The goal is not to have a major fire incident. And again, 2 major fire incidents in 10 years. This is part of, it's part of a comprehensive fire prevention program. So we are not saying our system can be primary now that it's FM approved. It can be secondary. It can be a piece of it. It can be, a 300,000 square foot building where 280,000 square feet is covered by certain sprinkler heads and some deluge system, and then our system at a certain, our nozzles and cameras as the heads and as the response. So we are part of the comprehensive program, part of a sprinkler system. We are not the end all be all unless the system was built that way. We have our boxes, which are our self-contained units. So these are basically just large fire extinguishers. This is what you see on most tipping floors. They have 1,000 gallons. They shoot for 6 to 8 minutes. We fill them up next business day. And again, we do full maintenance, full monitoring, bumper to bumper warranty for the life of the contract. So we have our mast units that you'll see on a ton of scrap metal facilities. We have a ton of custom installations, right? I mean, we literally create these special for you guys. Here's our continuous flow solution. Guess what? It's FM approved. If I don't say that 800 times today, I will. But, with these, we can do fog spray. We can do straight stream, for hanger protection. If we see a jet fuel fire, or jet pool, we can actually spray it with a blanket with a fog spray, and then we wouldn't hit that with direct, and we could actually do a direct spray towards another different type of hazard, right? So again, it's really a lot of this is how are we responding to these fires and what expertise have we built. This is the on watch. This sits about 300 to 400 feet in front of your landfill facing, and it moves every three weeks. And we have literally caught, I can't even tell you how many fires with this unit where we catch them early. You just bring cover. There's really no major fire. If you leave your landfill for a weekend, it's always a holiday. Someone calls you and tells you there's black smoke coming from it. That's a way worse way. We tell you probably days earlier, but for sure minutes, after we see it. We do have a ton of cap systems. I mean, these units we have on a lot of floors. So, it's if you're going to have your employees fight fires, please do so and giving them the right tools. They shouldn't be fighting a firework or or a battery that has battery packs that continuously can explode and provide projectiles and all these other things without having the ability to fight it from 90 feet away with a 100-foot hose. This is our newest unit, and this is our hot work unit. So this actually, it does small storage, and this replaces the guy standing there doing fire watch, right? So we don't sleep, we don't eat, we don't blink. We're not on our phone, we're not making TikTok dances, we're not having any fun. We're just sitting there and basically protecting you from fires. We also replace water towers, right? So if you ever have any outdoor situations, this is really, I mean, you can see, this is one of our customers, but, we do have, 6 pallets high of paper outdoors. We're able to, protect. So we're doing, whoop, who said what? Someone say something?
Nope, I think we're good, Ryan.
All right. Kurt, was that you? All right. But again, there's a lot of different pieces that go with it, and I'm happy to walk through this with you guys. But the reality is that we've built the ability to respond in those 10 minutes, to communicate with the folks on site, to communicate with the fire professionals as well. We can do it in different languages, we can do it in different countries, and that's the hardest part because it's really hard, and we have really good people. virtual firefighters, right? So the biggest part of this is that we've never once accidentally sprayed, right? We don't accidentally deluge. It doesn't happen, right? So in 10 years, if you can tell me an automated system that hasn't had that problem, or where I'm watching videos where they're spraying the back of someone's head and they're basically running them out the door, or spraying the back of a loader every time that there's some sort of an operation, we stop. We don't hit people. We are safe when we're fighting these fires. We are doing it, with safety in mind. Um, we've won awards. This is actually, we won a Red Hawk 50, which this is because Will and is a Miami graduate, but we find out on Friday where we fall in this year. We were 13 last year. Pretty excited about it. And again, I really, just looking at full out benefits to jump in, reduce, there's no false activations, appropriate response to specific hazards, and we use less water, right? That's really the big pieces of this. We've been, from a professional adoption perspective, we were in the fire protection handbook. We've obviously been FM approved, so it's pretty exciting for us. So now is really time. I have videos. I would like to show you guys the latest one that we saw, which I don't know if you guys saw this, but this is when everybody talks about batteries. Well, there's still traditional hazards that happen all the time, right? So again, this, we just dealt with this the other day. But again, it is crazy the types of hazards we see. This is a lithium ion bike battery. We drive off this creates 5 different fires. We spray those 5 different fires. Again, human being, fire rover agent, sprays, pulls back because he's trying to save water, right? Turns it off, moves it, sprays. I mean, this one was just targeted and surgical, and that's really, surgical targeting is really what we do. All right, what kind of questions we got?
So far, nothing in the chat, but I got one sort of overarching question. What do you think the biggest opportunity is in the waste sector in the next year? I mean, where do you,
fire perspective?
Let's go from a fire perspective. I mean,
I honestly think, first of all, I do believe that, every tip floor, every MRF, every metal yard, really needs to be protected by our type of solution. Now, again, I also will say the same thing about most industrial and outdoor fires. And, the reality is we started in waste and recycling. So really, waste and recycling in the US was lucky to have us, I think. And I don't mean that in anything but a humble way. I think there's things that they can do now with understanding from an X-ray perspective, the contamination coming in and leaving and how they sort through all those things, and really understanding what is coming in on your truck so you can go and actually move up the chain and try to stop those hazards from happening. Because a lot of times I'll talk to electronic recyclers, or, I was talking to a guy who does alkaline recycling. He does lead acid battery recycling. But, he when he starts to get, lithium ion batteries that come in, right, his whole thing is to basically go look where he got them from and then go talk to and educate that customer, right? Where, maybe they don't understand that, just because a car battery looks like, one or the other, you have to read it and figure out, is this lithium or is this lead, lead acid battery. So, yeah, I truly believe that the more, we're getting to that level where you're going to be able to know exactly what's coming into your facility, whether you're C&D, whether you're MRF, whether you're, any sort of commodity who's bringing in product that you don't know, and, basically taking it and trying to, create an actual catered and more prescriptive response to the hazards that are coming in, right? And again, a lot of what we do from an education perspective is public, right? It's how are we getting the public to understand not to do this? Well, the problem is that, and again, we go back to vapes, there's nowhere for someone to drop off a vape. So what do you think they're going to do with it, right? You don't want them just to throw it on the ground, so you put it in trash, right? That's where, in theory, it's supposed to go. It actually makes sense, and that's logical. But the reality is, how do we now go in and target the and I don't want to call them evildoers, but the people who are doing improper recycling or improper waste, or a lot of times it's the businesses that know that they shouldn't get rid of something this way, but they put it through and try to get it through a hazmat provider without them knowing. So it really is a lot of education, and it's not just the public.
All right. With that, there's a question. Have you heard of insurance companies reducing premiums if you have a fire rover system in your facility?
Yes, and yes. There's never once been one time in the last 5 years where you don't get a discount. And if you don't get a discount, you have the wrong insurer. I mean, more often than not, what we're seeing is we're actually seeing co-ops being developed. So if you look at our largest customer, we protect $4.5 billion worth of their property, plant, and equipment. And we do it at a rate on a monthly perspective or on a yearly perspective, which is literally less than 10% of what they would be paying for that same type of premium. So most of our customers, if they argue the right way, and by argue, I'm a lawyer, so what I mean by that is, they make the correct argument. There's no one that will not tell you that you can mitigate risk of a major catastrophe having our solution in it, right? And again, most insurers now are requiring it, but that's a different piece. I don't think we're not there yet where it's a requirement, except for FM, which is a big piece. We'll see what happens in a year.
So Ryan, I'm going to go a little super nerdy on OSHA, and you have a section of the report about the OSHA emergency response standard. It's currently a draft standard that OSHA took comments on. Do you think it survives the Trump administration, or where do you think that's going to go?
I mean, I don't even know if I survived the Trump administration. And again, I'm not picking a side at this point, right? So, I think the reality is that I think everything's up in the air right now, right? So, I think all of us are saying the same thing, but in all reality, we should be protecting our people, right? And again, Biederman hits this all the time, right? Waste and recycling is one of the most dangerous, occupancies out there. And most of the industries that we're in are dangerous, and fire is a big part of it. Explosion's a big part of it. So, having the right people fight the fires on the front lines is important. Now, again, if that's us remotely because you're paying for a fire brigade, really us being a fire brigade or a private fire department, well, that's good, right? Because you shouldn't be using your fire professionals on the front lines. Fire professionals are undertrained, right? They know that. They say only 2% of what they get is training. And I think that number is going to go down. And I'm seeing it all over LinkedIn with all my fire professional friends who are saying hey, this just got cut. Hey, this got cut. FEMA just cut this. And, a lot of these guys, these are the guys here to protect you. So if anything, we need to do more training for them. And from a battery perspective, most of these fire professionals are only being trained on responses to EV batteries, not to personal storage or personal electronics. So the reality is that we need to do everything we can to not have the fire professionals hurt, right? It's like playing football. You want to make sure your quarterback doesn't get hurt. You sit him for a little bit, right? You let him fight from the frickin', from somewhere that's not on the field, because when you're on the field, there's a potential for you to get hurt. And really, they should be focusing on the fires that they are more comfortable in, where especially when they need to save someone's life, which normally in this area we don't have that issue.
All right, you got a question on prevention. What types of prevention activities are working, and what is the role for X-ray vision technology?
X-ray vision, I think, is doing great when you can meter it. But the days of us looking at, an entire tip floor, knowing exactly where everything is very, it's down the road, right? This is not something that's happening today. Again, can you meter out and make sure that you're seeing and metering out all of your material, and then potentially see even there, you're getting stuff that's going through the cracks. And what happens when I look at an entire truck, and I have the ability to do it because they can do it now, but then what happens when I have 10,000 batteries inside a truck, right? Or 1,000 batteries inside a truck? Is that truck now just taken to the landfill, and then it causes fires there? So, the reality is that we have to deal with this problem somehow. And at some point it needs to be dealt with. And I think probably the best point is after in-feed. That's where we're seeing, a lot of the investment for, the x-rays going in. But I mean, the reality is that like, I don't need to see the inside of a pile to know whether that pile is, deep seated or not. Right. So one of the things that I always tell people, and, there is a report that has, inside the report, I have the combinational approach to firefighting. But like the reality is right here, this guy did it wrong. Right now, again, this was also 8 years ago, but right there, we should be pre-wetting and then they should be pulling away a layer, not going in deep. So, when you have a loader operator that goes in, they should never go in and really take a big chunk, right? Because if you have 8 out of 10 times, that's fine. But when you have deep seated fires and you have an accelerant, like you literally make it worse. So we should have sprayed right there. Well, instead they went in and, he's now making a mess. And again, I will these guys were up and running 3 hours later, right? Or the next business day. It was a Saturday afternoon. So there, you're going to see this fire just got massive, right? Now I have to deal with it. And again, there's another issue, right? I'm also going to have a fire in, one of their employees who, the fire department calls the hero, and the fire department hates the hero, right? Because again, they're not in here to save a life. They're in here to literally save their building or whatever. You see that right there? So this is where, again, that didn't even touch our heat. And think about like when we can see smoke, we can see heat, we know exactly how we're fighting this. So, the fire department can't see that. And again, this is a system, we'll end up having this thing up and running. I mean, the fire department's now here to a safe situation, but, one of the best practices we've ever seen, is just pull away a layer, pre-wet, pull away a layer, pre-wet, pull away a layer until you reach the biggest hazard. And at that point, hopefully it's been hit.
Got a pretty quick question. What's the SDS on the product, on the extinguishing product?
So again, we're agnostic when it comes to what we use. We use foams, we use gels, we use NFPA 18A encapsulator agents. So we have SDSs, but if there is an issue or is there something that is needed, I mean, we have some customers that refuse to use anything. When we have 1,000 gallons, we like to add in exactly the amount, right? Like we like to have that extra seat belt and that safety belt, but most of our continuous flow systems, they don't have inductors of anything, right? Like they literally just use water. And we believe our early detection and the use of our firefighting tactics is the difference. It's not, it's the difference in it's not any sort of suppression out there that is, acting like they, need that. I mean, because really at the end of the day, you're just adding something extra. And if you can get it with water, you're going to have the least amount of potential pollution. But yes, most of our products have SDSs. We don't use a product that uses fluorines at all. So we haven't even touched that in a decade.
All right. Any other questions? I was going to get one more question to wrap us up, but want to give everybody a chance to put one in.
Come on, guys, no questions. I'll open it up to everybody. Anyone, Biederman, I know you want to talk. What do you have to say?
Okay, Ryan, you tempted me there.
I mean, I see you with like your mute on, mute off. Like, come on, like, I mean.
So here's my
I know
question.
What you're thinking.
Here's my question, and you're a lawyer, and so you'll appreciate this.
I went to law school. I didn't take the bar, but okay.
Okay, well, why? If it's reasonably foreseeable that vapes are going to be thrown away improperly and cause fires that cause millions of dollars of damage, it would seem to me like good plaintiff side lawyers would be lining up to file lawsuits against the vape manufacturers and get punitive damages. Why hasn't that happened?
Good point. I mean, you're a lawyer, right?
Guilty as charged.
All right, so Biederman, and Mime, which Mime's the silent partner. We're gonna have you open it up and like start the 1-800 number. I mean, listen, from my perspective, right? Like the manufacturers are not bad people, right? Like, I mean, this is all like we as the public are. It's pure economics, right? We as the public are demanding more and more, batteries, more and more charging, and to be more and more, more and more. You know take it with you, or bring it wherever we want conveniently, right? So the reality is that these are being dropped on our front lines, right? And again, when I say we are at war with vapes, or we are at war with batteries, like I have some folks who say that I'm being overly dramatic, which duh, I mean, of course I'm being a little overly dramatic, but I'm trying to get my point out there that waste and recycling operators are the victims here, right? Like, again, I understand that there's a lot of places they are not a victim, but in this case here, they are victims. They are having like these hazards dropped at their doorstep, and they are required to take care of them. So again, I look at it and say, well, there is manufacturers out there that should be paying for, I don't like, again, I'm not saying that punitively they should be paying. What I'm saying is that they should be helping from a purely economic perspective, make the investments and the education that makes sense. Again, don't educate the public not to put vapes into frickin', to the trash, and then don't provide them anywhere to put a vape, right? Like, you need to make it convenient, and we do not have enough drop-off locations. So again, if I'm a manufacturer, you should be paying for more drop-off locations, safe ones.
But the only way to get them to do that is for them to have to pay a multi-million-dollar verdict in Harris County, Texas, or some other jurisdiction that, starts that process.
Again, I don't know that. I mean, I'm not saying that it's not true. I mean, again, like, I don't know how it works. All I know is I'm bringing the problem up. No one's paying me enough to try to solve the problem. I'm not running an association. And if I was running an association, I know what I would be focused on. But again, there's, again, like, I can only do so much, right? And, from our perspective, I mean, it's driving awareness to the problem, which hopefully will get the solutions and the cogs working. If it takes a lawsuit, I mean, I'm sure, right? So, again, there's people who make a lot more money than me who know how to do these things better than I do. But
all right, one more question. It's a logistical question on the methodology. What triggers a fire rover? How does it know where to go and what it's supposed to do?
human beings. So we have fire rover agents that are in a UL certified 5-diamond facility. We have more than enough butts and seats. When we have a continuous flow, or when we have, we actually have different teams that are working different nozzles fighting these fires, right? So if you see 3 nozzles working, that's 3 separate teams of folks who are now fighting those fires in the best situation from their perspective. So, that's really what triggers it. And that's why we never had a false alarm. We don't have false delusions. That's why we never accidentally spray, right? We don't hit people. I mean, if we've hit people in the past, it's because they've walked into, like, actually we do the opposite. So, here's a great video. So, this is one of our customers. It's a metering drum. We do a ton of protection on metering drums. If we see a heat abnormality, we will call our customer and say, hey, you have an obstruction inside your drum. You need to remove it. We also have an e-stop that will shut down the conveyor system to keep the fire in the area that it needs to be. And then we have another camera that's basically set up so once there's a fire. But there's an example in this issue. What you see are 2 guys with loader in a bucket being lifted 14 feet with traditional fire extinguishers. And again, do you see what it's doing to this fire? It's just making a mess of it. Now, right there, they're actually in this loader bucket. Okay. My person, if they would have shot through and it would have been an automated system, they would have knocked these guys off, because they would have shot towards the heat and they would have knocked them off. We don't do that. We wait, and then we spray, and we now put it out, right? So it's because of our human being, right? We are remote firefighters, remotely putting fires out through the internet. And again, like not all systems are the same. There's nobody else in the world doing what we do. And, you know, this is where it's one of those, like, here's another example. This is a waste to energy facility that we protect. Our job here is not to hit the grapple. It's not about anything else except don't hit the grapple with water, right? Because the grapple, which is the size of a helicopter, they only have 2 of them in the building, right? So if one of these goes down, they got to have another one as their backup. If 2 of them go down, this entire system is done. And you know, these 10,000 tons of garbage, you know, every day is now not being burned and now not being, you know, taken away. And like, this is like a 60-foot pit. So there's times that it's a lot higher. But again, what you just saw was we're spraying. We had to get water. Now watch, they're going to drop it. Now the loader operator, the guy who's controlling it, dropped it in our system. You see us move. Now again, we're not controlling that nozzle. So do you see how we move out of the way, right? We are trying not to hit that, right? Now again, this is their nozzle. They're spraying their own stuff. They're breaking every one of their own rules. There's only so much we can do here. We also have a gel system that sits in the back of this. So, you know, again, we are a thinking man system. We are remotely fighting these fires. We have more experience fighting lithium ion battery fires, trash fires, waste fires, internal hazards than any other fire department in the world.
All right, Ryan. Well, I'm getting there's lots of thanks and thank yous. I took down everybody's email that's looking for the report, so I'll send that to you. Thank you all. And hopefully maybe we'll see some good progress out of the 9th report in a year.
I mean, I just finished, Kurt. So, I mean, this really does take a lot of time.
Oh,
and again, listen, I want everyone to know I appreciate everybody's support. I really, truly do. And, you know, the reality is that, you know, 10 years later, after we've gotten to this point, I really think we're at the beginning of something amazing. We're trying to change the way the world's fighting fires, right? I'm in the fire industry, but we are helping waste and recycling the best we can. So I really, truly would love to, you know, Dave, I would love to fight, you know, and try to make sure that we have a you know, a vape collecting, a safe collector for vapes on every corner. But again, I only have so much time in the day, and you know, there are people who, you know, can take this and run with it and make it their, you know, a big piece of what they do for a agenda.
all right. Thank you all.
Cool. All right. Thanks, guys. I appreciate it.